Welcome, we're live. Welcome to From the Shed End with myself, T.Dot. Thank you very much for joining. If you're here already, if you're not, then please make sure when you do go to watch this video that you subscribe to the channel. You give the channel a thumbs up, you give the video a thumbs up. And also more importantly, let us know your thoughts in the comments as well about what we're going to be discussing today after another snooze fest of a game last night. Chelsea 0, Liverpool 0. There's a lot to unpack, but firstly I do need to apologize because me and Theo, we tried to do I gotta take the blame for it, but we tried to do something new with the channel. We went live, we used a different program than we usually use, and you could hear me loud and clear, but unfortunately you couldn't hear Theo. So I know there's a lot of people that have watched that video already. Hopefully next time we do a live with me and Theo and there's another guest on here, then hopefully it's resolved and it's not an issue, and then we can resume back to normal talking between me and Theo. So yeah, we should be able to sort that out for the next one, but don't worry about that. That's in the past now. Episode 88 will be re-recorded. We will have that out as soon as possible. We'll obviously talk about a lot more that's happened and developed over the last couple of days as well since Graham Potter's been sacked, which is what a lot of the conversation that we had on Monday was about, that we now can't hear because there's no audio to give you guys. But we're going to be back with episode 88, so don't worry, we'll be back. But make sure you hit the Linktree link as well in the description. That will take you to all our social accounts, all our other episodes as well that we've recorded previously, so you can go back and listen to the times when we actually enjoyed being Chelsea fans and the times when we didn't enjoy being Chelsea fans. So there's a lot to unpick in there as well. But let's start with last night, because last night was one of those games that for me personally we should have easily won, and we do have to factor in a lot of things. Obviously Bruno Solta only just having a job for no much more than 48 hours before a game against Liverpool. So it's always going to be a big ask for him to come in after the sacking of Graham Potter, to come in and change things drastically at the club. I don't think anyone expected that. But when you saw the lineup, well, I saw the lineup from Liverpool, I mean, you got to look at the players that they had out. I mean, the lineup that they went with was crazy. I mean, I didn't know Van Dijk was going to be missing. Obviously, he was out with an illness. They had Trent on the bench, so Joe Gomez played at right back. Joel Matip came in for Van Dijk as well. Tsimikas played ahead of Robertson. It was just crazy, you know. No Mo Salah as well, no Cody Gakpo. So there was a lot that we could easily, from before the game kicked off, we could see that Jurgen Klopp had clearly, after the drumming that they got at the weekend against Man City, with the fact that they've got Arsenal on Sunday as well, it's a massive game for both Arsenal and Liverpool. Liverpool trying to get top four and Arsenal still trying to retain another Premier League from however many years they haven't won it for. I mean, it was there for the taking. Let's be honest. We were there as the home team. We should have done a lot better. But I was impressed with the lineup. I'm going to be honest. I thought there was, for me personally, I still don't understand why Badiashile isn't getting the game and why Cucurella was starting at left centre back. But I'm going to give Cucurella his credit because he played a lot better than he did against Aston Villa. And I think all the team did. I think we can easily say that all the team had a better performance than they did against Aston Villa at the weekend. So I think that we can easily say that. I think there's, you know, there had to be improvement because we were that poor against Aston Villa. But I look at the lineup, first of all, for us. We obviously went with Kepa in goal, Reece James as a right wing back. We had Wesley Fofana, Koulibaly and Marc Cucurella as our centre backs, and we had Ben Chilwell as our left wing back. We then had a three in midfield, which is something that did actually take me by a lot of surprise. You know, N'Golo Kante, who we're going to get onto, Enzo Fernandez and Mateo Kovacic all starting in midfield with a front two, which I felt it was more. Yeah, I mean, we're going to get onto the front two as well. But Kai Havertz and João Felix up front for Chelsea as well. On paper, when you look at both teams and how both teams lined up, we clearly were the better team. We should easily have gone on to win that game without a shadow of a doubt. We easily had our chances, which is something that we've said on here before and many times before. But it's more of the same. You know, we can't finish for fun. We just can't finish goals. We can't finish. Just looking at the stats here now, I mean, we had 12 shots, 3 on target, as opposed to 7 shots, 4 on target for Liverpool. But just thinking about some of those moments, I mean, the link-up play between the midfield and the attack was brilliant. You know, Kai Havertz, I don't know. I mean, we give Kai Havertz the praise, you know, the fact that he scored the goal in the Champions League almost 2 years ago now. But what has he done since then? He hasn't really done anything. And it's one of the things that I keep saying on this channel is that we are crying out for a striker. We're crying out for an Ivan Toney. I can't keep stressing it so any more than I have done in the past. But Ivan Toney for me is the crucial, the key player, the one player that we actually need in the team. Someone that is just a natural goal scorer, someone that we know can score goals, penalties as well. I mean, it begs the question, why Aubameyang? I know Aubameyang is due to leave in the summer. David Datro Fofana, another player who's done really well in the under-21s and recently in international for Ivory Coast as well, for the under-21s Ivory Coast team. But why isn't one of the two being given an opportunity? Because we clearly are doing everything we can in terms of defending, as we did against Liverpool. I know we're shaky on Saturday against Villa, but we're doing everything we can possible to win the games. We're doing everything possible to win the games. Midfield was brilliant. I mean, N'Golo Kante last night, I know Enzo got man of the match, and rightfully so. I don't think we can question that. I think he deserved to get man of the match. But Kante coming back from that long-term injury, I don't think he played since August. He obviously had a couple of minutes against Villa. He played a sort of training game recently as well, behind closed doors. But for him to come into that game against Liverpool, regardless of who was in their midfield, you know, the Fabinho, Curtis Jones and Jordan Henderson, but he dominated that midfield. He was everywhere, defensively, attacking as well. And N'Golo Kante was brilliant. And it goes to show, you know, if we had a fully fit Reece James, a fully fit Ben Chilwell, a fully fit N'Golo Kante, with the addition of Enzo Fernandez coming into the team as well, I think it's clear to see that we would have been, and we are, you know, a really good team going forward. I think the only missing piece to our puzzle right now is the fact we need a striker. We need a number 9. And the fact that we've spent close to £600 million on new players and we still have not addressed the issue of a striker. You know, we allowed Lukaku to go to Inter Milan. We brought in David Datro Fofana. Clearly isn't the first choice. He's not even in the team. He's not even on the bench. So it's crying out for a striker in the summer. And I think everything else will fall into place. You know, I think the João Felix and Kai Havertz, I mean, between the two of them, they could have at least scored 3 goals last night easily. I mean, you look at Kai Havertz, he had a really good chance. He puts himself in the right places, and then when it matters the most, he fluffs his lines. And João Felix, who on other occasions has actually been very good in front of goal, very unfortunate. He's hit the crossbar, he's hit the post a few times. You know, he scored a goal, but it's not good enough for the level of football that we are expecting at Chelsea. It's not good enough for Kai Havertz. It's not good enough for João Felix, who does a lot as well in terms of trying to make something happen in that final third. But when it comes down to scoring goals, and you need a goal scorer, you need someone who's confident, because it feels like there's a confidence issue between Kai Havertz, and now it seems to be steep, sort of going on to João Felix as well. Neither of them ooze confidence at all at the moment, and you can see that when they're in front of goal. You know, Kai Havertz has a beautiful opportunity, and in the I think it's in the first half, and all he's got to do is he's just got to put his foot through it. João Felix as well, lovely ball comes in. I think it's from Reece James or Chilwell, one of the two, and he just kind of like just half-heartedly kicks at the ball, takes a little swipe at the ball, just put the side of your foot onto it, connect with it properly, and it goes in a goal. You know, and I think it was just so much ifs and buts with us at the moment, and that's what it's been all season. But for me personally, I think we have the right tools. We have the right players. We have everything in place. Yes, we might need to go and look for a goalkeeper, but now that N'Golo Kante seems to be hopefully fully fit or back to a level of fitness where he can start games, Enzo's there as well. We've got a good, you know, couple of centre-backs now. We've got Thiago Silva to come back in. We've got Badia Shield. We've got Wesley Fofana, who was outstanding last night as well. We have to credit him. You know, there was a moment where Liverpool had a shot and it was heading in goal. I mean, Kepa, he probably saw it very late as well. And Fofana, just a slight touch, takes it away for a corner. Brilliant bit of defending from him. I thought he looked very comfortable. Again, you know, you talk about Trevor Chalobah, who for me still should have a role to play at Chelsea. I know he's not been on the bench, he's not been involved in the lineups recently, but I think he's got a massive role to play at the club as well. So defensively, we're okay. Midfield, I think we're okay. Even in those attacking positions, you know, Raheem Sterling, who came on but didn't really affect the game too much. Mudryk as well, another player that has a role for me still to play at the club. Very early days for him. We have to give him time to adjust to the league and to playing for Chelsea. So I think there's a lot to take from what we've done so far. But I just look at those attacking options, and Aubameyang, the fact he's not even on the bench, he's not even being spoken about as a substitution, someone that we should be making some sort of use of, regardless of where he goes in the summer. If he stays at the club where he goes, it looks like he's going. But even now, he's still contracted. He's still paid by Chelsea Football Club. He still should be given an opportunity. And I think, me personally, I think even if you're a striker and you don't want to be at a club, you want to score goals. It doesn't matter what your situation is. I'm going back to the days, I think, when Teddy Sheringham and Andy Cole weren't even speaking to each other for Manchester United. They literally hated each other, but they still scored goals together. They still linked up and scored goals. It doesn't matter about the situation you're in. I think if you want to score goals and you're a striker, you want to score a goal. You'll be annoyed if you came off the pitch and you didn't score a goal. So I think, for me, Aubameyang should be given an opportunity. I still think Ivan Toney, for me, I think he's, for me, a proven goal scorer. Yes, he's got this ban that's going to be weighing over him over the next couple of months. But even after that, I mean, if we're talking long term, and this is what we're trying to plan for when we talk about the new manager shortly, when we plan long term, I think we've got to try and bring in someone who we can see it as a long term option going forward. We thought that was Lukaku. There's a question as well about Lukaku. Does he come back into the fold now? Watching the post-match after the game yesterday, Daniel Sturridge made some really good points, watching it on the TV, and he made some really good points around the fact that, 9 out of 10 of those chances, especially last night's game as well, when you think back to the João Felix miss, you think back to the Kai Havertz miss as well, Lukaku's probably burying them. He's probably putting them in the back of the net because he's a goal scorer. He knows where the back of the net is. He scored last night, I think, for Inter Milan. He knows how to score goals regardless of the situation he's in. And I think the problem that Lukaku had before was the service was not there. He wasn't getting the service. You think back to those days when, he'd make the decent runs, or he'd make it, he'd be in the right pocket of space, or he'd be playing off that last defender, and he was never receiving the ball, or he'd receive it too late, or, the pass would go back, or it would go sideways, or go somewhere else. It would never go to feet, would never go to Lukaku. I think personally, things have changed at Chelsea since then. You look at Raheem Sterling's coming, you think Mudryk's coming, Madueke, João Felix, all these players that have come in since then, even Enzo Fernandez. And Lukaku potentially does have a role to play here. I really do think now. Would I want to see him as first choice over someone like Ivan Toney? Not really, because I think Ivan Toney would bring a bit more. And I think there's going to be a lot of unrest with the fans as well, thinking if and when Lukaku does come back, I think there'd be a lot of unrest if he was to feature for Chelsea next season. I think, the fans wouldn't just welcome him with open arms after the interview. But, like I said, Daniel Sturridge made some really good points that, yes, he's not the answer to Chelsea's problems, but I can guarantee you that he's going to be putting that ball in the back of the net a lot more than Kai Havertz or João Felix at the moment. So, he's a Chelsea player. We have to still consider him a Chelsea player regardless of whether he's on loan or whether he leaves in the summer. Until then, he's a Chelsea player, just like Aubameyang. Two players for me. We're playing with a false nine, and we've got a striker that's somewhere in the club, somewhere in Cobham, and we're not using him. Same with that David Datro Fofana, another player that we can clearly, he's shown already. I think it was against Manchester City that he can play that role as a number 9, a lot better than Kai Havertz and a lot better than João Felix. So for me, one of the two have to be included going forward. They have to be considered going forward. You can't have, for me, a false 9 that is zero confidence going forward. Even the goal that he scored, with his arm. I mean, he doesn't even have to use his arm. Maybe the ball just ricochets and it's the timeless of the ball coming off Alisson, but, just use your chest. Just use any other part of your body but your arm. Even when the luck is against you, it's just crazy to me that we've got strikers in the club, whether they're good or bad, they can't be any worse than playing Kai Havertz as a false 9, in my opinion. Because the problem is as well, we're putting Kai Havertz as a false 9 or a number 9, whatever you want to call it. You're taking him away from being able to actually affect the game in a different way. So he's more of a playing off the left or playing off the right or just playing behind that striker, and that's his role. And the fact that he's not been able to do that, he hasn't done that all season really, or even back to last season. You know, he needs to play in a natural role that suits him. So I hear when everyone says, you know, we've got to get rid of him. But I just think in terms of Kai Havertz, he's not really been given the opportunity to play in the role that suits him. So I think it's very harsh when we criticize him for not scoring goals, because to me, he isn't a natural goal scorer. Yes, he was ripping up the Bundesliga and he was doing really well there, but, you know, play him in his natural position and bring in a striker, put Aubameyang there, because Aubameyang should be the one who's still getting a wage from Chelsea and he's not actually playing. So for me personally, I would have Aubameyang in that role. It can't be any worse than Kai Havertz for me personally. When Lukaku does eventually come back, which he will, it sounds like Inter don't want him. There is a massive question mark about what do we do? Do we try and sell Lukaku, or do we try and let him adjust and bring him in and try and play him through the middle? You know, we've got players now, like I said, Enzo, we've got Madueke, we've got Mudryk, we've got Raheem Sterling. You know, even if Mason Mount was to stay, you know, there's a question mark around him with the new owner as well coming in. So, just reading a comment here, Mohamed, he'll get better service, but he'll slow the play down. His first touch is still not great, and he's going to do a lot to get the fans back in. I agree with that, Mohamed. I do. You know, I do think he potentially would slow down, but I mean, he cannot be any worse than what we currently have at the moment with Kai Havertz, who clearly has no confidence in front of goal. Yes, he gives you a goal in, you know, 1 in 4 or 5 games, but it's not, you know, that top level. You need someone who's going to be scoring goals, or at least attempting to score goals every game. And it's just, for me personally, it's not good enough for Kai Havertz. It's not good enough for João Felix last night. But I want to talk about the offside, because the offside goal for me was very, very questionable. Enzo Fernandez and I think it was either Kanate. I think it was Kanate who when they drew the lines for the offside. And let me know what you think in the comments as well. But I mean, it looked onside. Now we're talking marginal. We're talking no toe to kneecap. I think it was Kanate's kneecap and Fernandez's toe. But he's onside. It's just, again, the angles that they're drawing these lines on and they're taking these VARs from, they're almost from a weird sort of 25-degree angle. It's such a weird angle to take. If they just literally done it, cut down the middle, or use the technology that they had in the World Cup or something, because the angle makes it look like he's offside. But if we actually drew the lines in a very sort of down the middle, you'd see that he's probably onside. It's such a weird goal not to give. And, you know, 9 out of 10 times, and we've watched it this season with other clubs and other teams, and potentially even against us or for us as well, those goals have been given. So it just shows again the inconsistencies around VAR, the issues there as well. But in terms of the game last night, for me, it was one of those games that it didn't really matter to me, because I've wrote this season off. But bragging rights for Liverpool, you still want to win games. You can't just play the last 9 games and not win them. But we should have won that game easily. You know, we should have been 3-0, 4-0 up. You know, and it was a silly game for us to give away, to hand Liverpool a point when clearly Liverpool weren't giving us any threats. I think Joe Gomez had a really good chance from outside the box. The chance that I mentioned earlier, where Fofana sort of gets a slight touch and it goes out. But apart from that, you know, Mo Salah came on, didn't really do anything. Robertson came on, didn't really do anything. Nunes, flashes of bit of brilliance, but nothing too much to worry the defence or to worry the goalkeeper. So I think this is one of those games where we'll look back and we'll think, you know, we should have easily beat them. You know, we should have beat them. We should have beat them when we played them when Reece James got sent off at Anfield. We were actually the better team with 10 men that day as well. So, you know, it's one of those games where it's hyped up so much that it becomes such a massive thing in footballing world, and then it doesn't really live up to the expectations. And, you know, I think you have to probably go back to the cup finals that we had last season, or even that 2-2 last January where Kovacic scored that brilliant goal. That was probably the best time that we've played Liverpool, and we came back from 2-0 in recent times. But, you know, it was a massive snooze fest. Let's be honest, it was a massive snooze fest. Mohammed in the comments is saying looked onside for me as well. Not sure if it's the angle, but it's a tough one to call. I agree, Mohammed. I think it's just the angle. I think the angle, the angles that, for me personally, the angle, is a massive issue. But they've proven that there's technology out there that they can use that would get rid of all this sort of ambiguous sort of is it or isn't offside. I mean, there's technology out there that they've clearly used in the World Cup. They tested it there, that, you know, it was all technology that seems to work well, and it showed if he was onside or if he was onside. Maybe use something like that, or maybe we can introduce that into the, you know, the English Football League or across Europe. I don't know. Maybe that's what their plan is, you know, to roll it out. But something needs to change, because, you know, you're talking about fine margins, and I don't think you could trust, you know, someone in a room to make those decisions for me. But crazy. Let's move on to managerial updates, because as I said at the start of this, me and Theo recorded episode 88, where we went into a lot of detail around Nagelsmann, around Luis Enrique, Pochettino, Brendan Rodgers, another one I think we spoke about as well after the sacking of Graham Potter. And as I said, the audio was not available, so we're going to have to re-record it all again. But I want to give an update, because obviously there's been a lot of talk over the last 48 hours about who comes in. Two names are popping up heavily over social media and in other reports as well. Julian Nagelsmann and Luis Enrique seem to be the two front runners. There is still Maurizio Pochettino, who has been in conversation with the owners at Chelsea as well. But I'm going to be honest, and I feel like I'm flip-flopping a little bit, because at one point I do want to see Nagelsmann come to the club. But I think currently where we are at the moment, and what we're trying to achieve, and what we're trying to do in terms of like the transition of the club at the moment, and everything that I suppose the club and Todd Bowley and everyone else involved wanted Graham Potter to do, you do need someone with a bit of experience, I think, to see through this transition. So one of the things I mentioned on Monday with Theo was, do we bring in an interim? And I know Frank Lampard's name's been mentioned, which was kind of out of the blue. I know he was at the game last night, but I'm going to be honest, I don't really think Frank Lampard coming in at this point in the season, for me personally, would be beneficial to him, would be beneficial to Chelsea. I know he loves the club, but we've got to be honest. I mean, Frank Lampard, for me, should be looking at maybe the Leicester job. You know, I know that Nottingham Forest have just come out and said they're going to back their manager, but you look at maybe Forest, you look at Leicester. There's other clubs that he could potentially go to, and I think this is a job where you need someone with a bit of experience, who's probably been in and managed certain, you know, top level players or players that are potentially coming through. And Nagelsmann, I think he won the Bundesliga, and I think he's won the German Cup as well. So he's only won 2 trophies. But when you look at Luis Enrique, he has won literally everything possible: the Champions League, the Super Cup, La Liga. He's won so much things, and he's able to, I think, deal with difficult egos in the dressing room, which we clearly have. Let's not beat around the bush. I mean, you know, again, we heard about when it was Thomas Tuchel, and there was the conversations about his relationship and his divorce and everything else. And apparently some of the players have been calling Graham Potter Harry Potter, and, you know, just there's so many things. You know, look at Aubameyang, another one who clearly has and will disrupt the dressing room. If Lukaku comes back, there's another one with a massive ego. You need someone that's going to be able to control a lot of that, still get the results on the pitch, and still get the backing of the players. And I'm not sure if Nagelsmann can do that. Not being an ageist, but I do think, you know, being 35, he's still learning. You know, he's almost in between a Frank Lampard and a Graham Potter, because yes, he's won things, but at the same time as well, you know, you need someone, me personally, you need someone in that's going to be able to see that transition through properly. And I think for me, Luis Enrique does that. He has done that. I think he'd be able to get the best out of, you know, some of the players that we've got already at the club. If we bring in players, like I said about maybe Ivan Toney or someone, a striker, whoever the striker is that we bring in, I'm sure he'll get the best out of them. He'll get the best out of the attackers that we've brought in terms of Mudryk, in terms of Madueke. You know, he'll look at maybe some of the other areas that we need to address as well. Maybe another midfielder, maybe a goalkeeper. And I think he would be able to do that. And maybe, I think at the moment we need someone who's able to transition a club, but also sustain a top 4, maybe sustain a Premier League push or a Champions League push. And obviously Graham Potter wasn't that person. And I don't know if Nagelsmann could cope with all of that. My only worry with Luis Enrique is the fallout with the board, potentially, at some point, which, if whoever comes in, I'm hoping they come in on a long-term vision, just like what they wanted Graham Potter to be. I want whoever comes in to understand the vision, understand their expectations, what the expectations are of the ownership, what needs to happen, the assurances maybe for certain players, or certain players that, you know, whoever wants to bring in, whoever comes in wants to bring in as manager. I want those assurances clear, because I think we've done it so backwards with Graham Potter. We got Graham Potter, then we got Christopher Vivell, then we brought in some of the other technical directors and some of the other people around the board. Now we've got all that sorted. This should be a lot smoother in terms of who comes in. You know, who's looking at players, who wants certain players. All of that should now be so much easier. I think when we got Graham Potter, it was just a case of get Graham Potter. Todd Bowley's going out with a blank checkbook and just signing who he needs to get in. Probably put his arm around Graham Potter and said, you know what, we'll give you one player that you want. He went and got Mark Cucurella. It just seemed very sort of chaotic at that time, and I think now things have settled down a bit at Chelsea. We've obviously got a lot of players in. We've got the as I said, Christopher Vivell and all the other sort of ownership around them as well. All the others, the coaching staff and technical staff as well. And I think Luis Enrique for me is someone that just oozes winners. I mean, I'm just going to pull up what he's won. So yeah, just looking back here. So Nagelsmann's won the Super Cup. So he won the Super Cup. He's won the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich, and that's all he's won. But when we talk about Luis Enrique, this is a man that's won the La Liga twice. He's won the Copa del Rey 3 times. He's won the Champions League. He's won the Super Cup. He's won the FIFA Club World Cup as well. You know, even in an international perspective, you know, he was the runner-up of the Nations League, individual awards, La Liga Coach of the Year, FIFA World Club Coach of the Year, Best Clubs Coach of the IFFHS, World Club Manager of the Year, European Coach of the Year, European Coach of the Season, and he's actually La Liga Manager of the Month only once. But my point is that this is a man that clearly has been around. He's played for some really amazing players at clubs amongst many amazing players. And I just think for me personally, we need someone with that experience to come in now. We really do. You know, I don't want to see Maurizio Pochettino. I love Nagelsmann. I love what he's doing. I think so. But I think now, and I said this when it was Graham Potter, I think we need to get the transition done before we bring in this younger manager to see things through. I really do. You know, you look back at Man City, you know, they went and got Mark Hughes at the time and it worked for them. They got Mark Hughes, then they went and got Pellegrini, then they went on to Pep Guardiola. So their transition was get Mark Hughes in. Mark Hughes will oversee whatever. You know, he oversaw the changes. You think about the club when they had the money, when they first got their money, and then they, you know, brought Mark Hughes in to get like the Craig Bellamy's in, the Robinhos in, and then they steadily went up a level and kept going up a level. You know, you think back to Mancini as well. You know, they brought in Balotelli, they had Dzeko, they had Aguero, and then when Pep came in. So I think there's a process to doing that. And I think Graham Potter was the wrong choice. I think bringing in an interim is a good option, but I also think as well, if we do that, then you've still got this recruitment process that you still need to do. Whether you do that in the summer, do you still carry on doing that whilst the season's happening? It can potentially disrupt certain players. It could also change the future of Mason Mount. And I think if we get a manager in now, someone like Luis Enrique or even Nagelsmann, and one of their first conversations surely has to be with Mason Mount. They have to say to Mason Mount, look, what do you want to do? And obviously the Christopher Vivels and whoever else need to be involved in those discussions as well. But we need to get that resolved. We need to look at why Trevor Chalobah's not in the team. We need to look at why Badia Shield's not in the team. We need to think about Lukaku, that situation. So I think there's so many things that whoever comes in, they're going to have to address immediately as soon as they walk through the door. And I think if we leave that to the summer, we're going to be in the same situation again. Scattergun approach in the transfer market, you know, trying to sign this person and that person. I think if the manager comes in now, it gives them time to assess the club, assess what they think they might need. So many other things, you know, it might give them the opportunity to bring certain players back into the fold. You look at, you know, David Datro Fofana, Chalobah, Badia Shield, Carney Chukwuemeka. He might come back into the fold as well. There's so many things to consider. So I think we get the manager in now. There's more time before the pre-season. to do what he needs to do then in pre-season and get ready for next season. So I think that's why I'm thinking Luis Enrique, the accolades that he's won personally, the trophies that he's won as a club manager, even his international record's not that bad as well. But I think out of the two, both of them are currently in heavy discussions with the club. I think both have been reported to be, almost wanting to agree to the deal in terms of managing Chelsea. There's still slightly some talk about Pochettino, which I'm not heavily keen on. But one thing that I did read earlier this week as well was John Terry is happy to be part of whatever capacity he needs to be in terms of coaching or advisory or assistant, whatever, in terms of the senior squad, and he's happy to do that. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't. Let me know what you think in the comments. But I think, if we've got John Terry, who's Chelsea through and through, certain players will look up to John Terry. They'll listen to John Terry. A familiar face in the dressing room as well. Someone that's been there, done that, won certain things, won pretty much everything he can possible, to an extent at Chelsea as well. And I think he's someone that if we bring in, I think it'd be brilliant. Again, I'm talking about Mason Mount, who I think has still got a massive role to play at the club if he wants to stay and fight for his place and rediscover that form. I think Mason Mount would be brilliant with a striker in front of him that can score goals. So there's so much to consider and figure out. Wrong choice with Potter. Sort of shying away from the fact that Nagelsmann hasn't really won much. Very much a new manager on the block. Do we stick with Bruno as well? That's another one. Do we stick with Bruno for the interim to the rest of the season and then bring someone else in? But it gives me Graham Potter 2.0 vibes. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like he's trying to change things, but he's worked under Graham Potter for 4 years. So a lot of what he's learned is obviously from Graham Potter. Yes, he changed it. He put 3 midfield yesterday, and it did work to an extent. But if we really want to try and compete next season with Man City, with Arsenal, with Liverpool will probably spend money in the summer, we need to get a top class manager. For me, that's Luis Enrique. He should be the number one candidate. He should be the one that we're going for. We should be going all out for him. Simple as that for me personally. So I have changed my mind since Monday, because I did say Nagelsmann would probably be a better fit. But thinking about it upon reflection, you have to think about the logistics and thinking about who will actually sustain and steady the ship at the moment in terms of the transition. And that's probably going to be Luis Enrique. Nagelsmann's going to have opportunities down the line to manage a top club, whether that's us or another club, very young in his managerial career. So I think for me, Luis Enrique, bring him in. Doesn't really take any rubbish either. That's another thing I haven't mentioned. He doesn't take any rubbish. Tactically, he knows what he wants to do as well. And if you watch some of his games, he tactically changes things immediately. He doesn't wait till we're 2-0 down or we're 1-0 down or we're 80 minutes in. He would change something immediately as soon as he needs to do that. And that's one of the things that I've criticised Frank Lampard for, criticised Thomas Tuchel at times for. Graham Potter done the same. And I think we need someone in that's going to be able to do all of those things. So let me know what you think in the comments. Is it going to be Nagelsmann? Should it be Luis Enrique? Should we stick with the interim for now? Should we bring in Maurizio Pochettino? As much as I hate to say that, but it is still an option. Frank Lampard's been batted around, but again, there's a Leicester job available. I think he should be going to the East Midlands and trying to get that one. But let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the button. Smash the subscribe button. And make sure you like the videos and hit that Linktree link in the description as well. Thank you very much for watching. Thumbs up. We'll be back we'll be back this week at some point. I keep forgetting what day it is. We'll be back this week with another live. Maybe tomorrow for another one. We'll talk about an update on the managerial